On that note, Soumya, it's all yours. Please enjoy. Enjoy, everyone.
Thank you, Dale. Thank you for that lovely introduction. And thank you, each and every one of you who are here, educators, experts who have taken time out to join me over here for this webinar. So, this webinar is going to be an extension of what my colleague did last Friday. If you have not, been able to attend that, you can find it on our YouTube link, which is already there in the chat box. She had spoken about drama and education, where she had introduced a lot of, you know, um, uh, forms of drama which can be used in your classroom. So I take it a step further, and here I want to talk about how speech and drama is connected to the complete learning process and how we can include all kinds of learners through the process of speech and drama within our classrooms. So, speaking about learning process, here is a very interesting quote which I found. It was by a very famous American poet and a civil rights activist, Audre Lorde. She says, "The learning process is something that you can incite, literally incite, like a riot, which is absolutely perfect when it comes to bringing speech and drama into your classrooms." So, about learning process, there have been great many experts who have formed models right from 1963 to 1995, and there are many who have spoken about it. We can always refer to each one of their models, but the crux of it all remains three steps. The first would be doing an action. The second is thinking, reflecting, research, and the third is application of it. Now, let me take you one by one along with the process. Doing an action, well, it has 6 steps in it. The first one starts with sensation, where inputs are given through your sensory organs. Now, most of us know about the 5 senses: vision, auditory, touch, smell, and taste. But the sixth one, proprioceptive, is not very known to some of us. I mean, when we start our journey in educating, we would come across it only towards the point where we are learning more about how to a kind of increase the capacity of our teaching. So proprioceptive was the term introduced by Charles Scott in 1906, and it majorly meant self movement and body position. This system, this sensation is located in your muscles and joints, and it is one of the most important sensations because it regulates the other sensory inputs. I mean, it practically enhances all the other inputs and enhances its response. And therefore, proprioceptive is considered a very important sensory input. Now, moving on to the next step in doing an action, after an input has been taken into the body, it what remains is to focus your attention on it. So to be able to focus on the input that has been given, and then it goes to perception, which is majorly making meaning or creating understanding the meaning out of what has been given to you, and then it becomes memory, which is about retaining and recollecting. Okay, and it goes to symbolization with communication. Communication can be language based or non-verbal, and then the final concept is formed in your brain. Now let me try to explain it further with an example. Let's take the example of a bird flapping its wings and flying away. So the first vision and auditory input would be watching the bird flapping its wings, the sound, the action, and then it suddenly grabs your attention. It has your focus. And then you make meaning out of it that yes, this is the necessary action that a bird needs to take in order to fly. Now, Being able to retain it and recollect it whenever you want is going to be your imagery. And then symbolization, the word birds and flapping would be your symbolization. Then comes the complete concept that a bird really needs to flap its wings in order to be able to fly. So that is doing an action. Now, thinking about why it happened, what more needs to be learned to understand this process, all this comes under the second process. That is your thinking, reflecting, and research. And most of the time, it is influenced by your social, economical, political, cultural, technical, physical, and mental health as well. One of the major influence can be the teacher as well. Now, the third and the final one is going to be the application of it. So where do you apply this knowledge? That is the final thing. This completes the learning process. Because of this, we have got different kinds of learners. And I wanted to pick up a very elaborate one, and therefore we have 9 learners. The first 4 are very famous: the visual, the auditory, scribble is read write learners, kinesthetic, stress, those who learn through examination models, ease, those who learn through relaxed models like playing through music or dancing or drama. And then we have trust learners who learn from an authority like a teacher or a leader. Then we have teach, those who learn through teaching others. And the last one, copy, those who first imitate their peers or adults and then further learn it in detail. Now, how are we incorporating all these 9 learners? Well, when it comes to visual, auditory, reading, and writing, we have textbooks, blackboards, we talk, we have experiments, notebooks, field trips, experiments, a lot of things. When it comes to stress, we have assessments, and ease, we have encouragement from the teacher or anything, any amount of the marks or whichever works well for the class. Then we have trust, because the teacher is the one who facilitates the whole thing. After that comes teach, which is peer group learning, when we are doing the group work and things like that. And imitation, of course, copy comes from imitating your peers and adults. But when it comes to kinesthetic learners or kinesthetic inputs, we have art and craft, music, physical education, drama, dance, all of it as a co-curricular subject. Only very few times do we use it within our classrooms, within our subjects. So why is it that? Why do we have it as a completely different input which is not included with your subject? What if I tell you that if you use drama as a kinesthetic tool, as a proprioceptive input, you will have all the 9 learners into your grip within that one activity which you have planned. So let's see why and how. In order to understand better, you have to know what are the tools of drama. So starting with warm-ups and energy and relaxation exercises, all the mental faculties and bodily faculties are triggered, and they are all alerted so that everyone is ready to take in the input that they have. Coming to theater games, a lot of group activity, time management, leadership, all of that is communicated. When it comes to theater techniques, well, you can also make them great actors with theater games. And alert, problem solving, all this come hand in hand with the theater games. After that, you have storytelling, story listening, story making, and enactment of it, where again, you have group work, you have creativity, you have transferring all the real life incidents into the story and being enacted. Another thing is improvisation, which is on the spot, which teaches you on the spot thinking. They're ready to think on their feet and improvise. If something is going wrong, they learn to correct it and take the script forward. And for those who do not enjoy verbal communication, we have mime, speaking through your complete body. You do not need language to communicate. You only need your body to communicate. And whoever is not communicating, whoever is not comfortable communicating with their own body, they can always prefer a mask or be behind a puppet, isn't it? And for all those who are great planners, we have backstage. Someone can decide what is movement, how can the set be, the music, dance, costume, complete management, the publicity, all of that. And then finally, we have the show. We have the stage show, where stage show can be as simple as an assembly, or maybe your own classmates. When six of them are performing, the others can be an audience. So that can be a simple translation of a stage show. Therefore, we finish all the tools of drama. Now, let's look at how do we translate this into a proper classroom. Let's take this interesting topic about supply and demand. All of you know that it is an interaction between sellers of a resource and buyers of that resource. Generally, low supply and high demand increase price, and vice versa. Very famous topic, a concept that children really need to understand. So how do I include all the 9 learners? And I have a class from A to Z. So how do I include all of them with one activity? Let's try a drama trick with this. So suppose A to D are your visual, auditory, reading and writing learners. I, as a teacher, would give them the task of coming up with a script about selling pink eggs. Why pink eggs? Well, why not pink eggs? Isn't it lovely? Just imagine pink eggs. We can just trigger their imagination. And they should come up with a script based on the concept of supply and demand. And then we have E to T, who are a combination of kinesthetic, trust, stress, easy, or copy learners. Now, these are your actors, set makers, property makers, your music composers, and people who will decide what movement, dance, or drills that can be included in the complete performance. And U to Z are all teach learners. These are the ones who will become directors, assistant directors, publicity managers, your stage managers, and things like that. Additionally, I would tell them that you need to have a game ready to be played with the audience. If it's only me as a teacher sitting on the other hand, you have to play it with me. And then just imagine what will happen. So we have a class where some of them are selling something, some of them are buying. And so suppose one person is buying and they said, oh, well, lovely, pink eggs are fabulous. They taste wonderful. Hey, do you know, you should go and buy. And the demand increases, the price increases. And then it becomes extremely rare to find. So then the demand's gone, or someone finds a worm in it. The demand has dropped and the price drops. So it becomes a hilarious skit for everyone to perform. Please give it a thought. Is this something which will take your time and energy? It will, I think it will take the child's time and energy and not yours. You are sitting as a facilitator, as a teacher who is going to facilitate every group, the ones who are writing, the ones who are acting or setting up the properties, and the ones who are actually directing it. And the rest of the time and energy is given by the child himself or herself. We faced a lot of questions about mathematics in the last webinar that Chanda did. And so I thought I would include one mathematics concept. So let's learn about factors. I'm looking at it in terms of multiplication. So when 2 or more numbers are multiplied, the answer is called a product. Each of the numbers being multiplied is called factor of product. Therefore, the concept of factors. Let's include everyone. The same thing. A to D are going to first write down factors of number 18, 24, 56, and so on, and give copy of all this to each and every classmate, and it has to be color coded. Now, this is just one of the example. You can do it whichever way you want. Each of the factors are color coded, okay? And they kind of weave a story around the numbers. For example, 9 was pretty sad that it was small. It wanted to become big. Therefore, it took the idea of jumping twice and becoming the number 18. So something like that. They would come up with a lot more. You'll be surprised at how they come up with really, really, amazing ideas to weave into a story. So then we have the E to T, who are ready to act it out, wear all the costumes which are color coded. And we have the dancers, properties, music composers, and movement in charges. And U to Z are those who are going to direct. No, this one goes from here to here, here to there. And someone makes the publicity, publicity that, okay, we are going to have a play about this mathematical concept. And again, I also tell them to come up with a game which involves the audience, which will finally ensure that they are interacting, increasing their social skills, not just with their own classmates, but also with people whom they are meeting probably for the first time, if it's an actual performance. So now, how do we adapt it online? Because the present scenario requires you to teach all of this online. So the simplest thing is, for supply and demand, do not have children moving around. Let them use their expressions and their hands. They're shouting, they're fighting with each other. Let them use their expressions, okay? And give their modulation in such a way that the whole concept is understood. For factors, of course, they cannot physically jump and go or take the movement. Let them have a paper puppet in hand, or say they just grab a property which is color coded and they jump as many steps as they have to in order to become the number that they are supposed to. All right. So adapting to online teaching, any concept which is movement based, adapting to online teaching would require you to know how much of the child can you use, which part of the child is visible, face, hands, shoulders, and voice. And then we have the provision of everything that is available at home. So that's how you adapt to online teaching. Now, let's go to students with special needs. When we were talking about the learning process, any gaps that you would find during the process will lead to the requirement of a special input, be it a medical condition, developmental, learning, mental health, or behavioral. Drama interventions focus specially on creativity, playing, acting, and healing. We do not specify on the needs. What we specify, what we use, or not specify, what we use from the child is their ability. What are they capable of doing? So Carl Jung and Phil Jones have given us beautiful statements about how drama interventions work. Drama gives a very safe space. It is not a place which is in the real world. It's a safe space near your teacher, the person you trust. And is it an imitation of reality? No, it is not an imitation of reality. It is active participation in the world. So therefore, the beautiful concept of drama interventions for special needs. This is where proprioceptive input comes in little more, because of the role of the proprioceptive input to regulate and enhance the sensory inputs. It alerts and it also calms down the child. So it facilitates attention and learning. Now, many students with special needs have different sessions with proprioceptive inputs. Okay, they go for occupational therapy or things like that. So all these equipments can be included within a drama performance. If a child prefers a trampoline, it can be easily made available within the play itself, within the skit itself. Okay, so it goes two ways. It also has the property which is comfortable for the child, and the child, because of the comfort, interacts not just with the group but also with the audience, resulting into social skill or life skill. Let's take a few examples. Now, for a child who has issues with eye contact, we would probably prefer mask game, because it restricts your vision to just the eyes, and it would be done first one-to-one so that the attention span increases. A child with ADHD would have shorter movements and shorter roles. They come in and come out multiple times into a story. Children with behavioral issues can have an open entry exit. Whenever they come in, they'll do their part and go. And a child with speech impairment can have a mime being performed instead of a big dialogue spoken. There are many many actions which can be used to enhance all the hand-eye coordinations. You can make a child make the property move on the stage. And basically, the whole thing is about not perfection, but trying to include everything within that script or story. Because when it comes to special needs, we are not looking at a perfect play. What we are looking at is inclusion. And drama opens up the space for every kind of inclusion. All you need to do is think towards including that particular need. And therefore, because we have all the learners covered, we also have all the intelligences covered, and therefore we have Howard Gardner's multiple intelligence theory replicated very easily through a speech and drama class. So whichever bent of mind the child is coming with, they will find something which fits their own intelligence. To put it in a completely different way, in a totally, say, parallel thing, we are cultivating all the 21st century skills in a child, be it critical thinking, media literacy. You can include technology anywhere you want, productivity, teamwork, initiative, leadership, anything, communication, collaboration, anything you mention, it is present in a speech and drama class. So I hope all of you have understood the learning process and how it becomes very easy when you approach it through drama. For more information on how different forms of drama can be replicated into the classroom, you can please refer my colleague Ms. Chanda's webinar on Trinity YouTube channel, which is called Drama in Education. If you are little doubtful about how to find the right tasks, then I would recommend you to please go through Trinity syllabus of speech and drama. We have six different subjects under the same heading, and all of this are all these syllabus are available very freely for everyone to download and refer. In each of them, you will find tasks which you can easily replicate in your class. So if you do not if your mind is not working and you need something to refer, do refer the tasks in all the syllabus that is available. I'll give you an example of how it is. Grade 5 level of a speech and drama would ask the child to speak about their best friend or a holiday. How will you replicate this in your classroom? Be it any subject, you just ask that child to come forward and talk, initiate the speech first, okay? Or make it or ask that child to form it into a very small story and have her or his friends enact it out. So just for the trigger, refer the syllabus and you'll get all the ideas that you need. Similarly, when it comes to communication-based syllabus of Trinity College London, we have everything that has the base in increasing confidence and giving that boost to the child that your voice is heard and you can speak about what you like and what would you like to do. Here are the 6 strands that you can find online. So we have Young Performers Certificate, which starts from age 3. It's based on group activities. There are 3 levels: bronze, silver, and gold, and it completely has teacher input and teacher facilitation readily approved along with the certification. We have speech and drama, acting, performance arts. Now, performance arts is really beautiful. I would like you to have a look at it because it is meant for all those children who can paint a little, who can talk a little, who can dance, do drama, or sing a little. It will give you room to encourage those children who are well versed with the regional arts as well. the requirement would be for them to weave it all into a performance and speak about it. So please do refer. We have musical theatre and we also have diplomas. We also have a communication syllabus, which we couldn't fit in the slide. Please refer that as well. So coming on to free resources, do go with the link, and I'm sure my colleague is putting it in the chat as well. This is a free anthology. You can find prose piece, poem, scripts, which have lot of subjects mentioned in it within the stories and things like that. You can find it online for free. You can print it out and use it in your classrooms. So do not think that you don't know where to start. Please start here. These are the links of the syllabus that are readily available for all of you to download and start reading. It will surely give you a lot of input on how to take a class based on speech and drama. If you are at loss as which activity or which task to go with in the first step. So let's pick up the smart option, and all of us, let's try to be smart, because this will not consume your energy and time. It will be the children's time and energy that will be consumed, and for you, it will only result into a lesson plan.